Don't be afraid of your competition. Watch them, learn from them. Don't just copy them, but try to look at what they're not doing. That might be a direction to go.
Hello, I'm Tammy Hahnemann, a maker, digital content creator, someone who works in many different mediums with a true passion for helping others find their creative spark. I also really love to connect others who have something to share with those who want to learn. Welcome to Heart and Hands of a Maker, the creative journey. If you found us, chances are you're on a quest for creative inspiration. Maybe you're feeling stuck in an artistic rut, dreaming of turning your passion into a flourishing business, or maybe you're hoping to see your work in print or grow your online presence. Well, my friend, wherever you are on your creative journey, you're in the right place. Today, we're talking with Carrie Story, a metal clay artist, inventor, manufacturer, and instructor. We'll be discussing Carrie's creative journey, explore her business evolution, and hear what she has coming up next, and you'll want to stay tuned. It's time to grab your favorite beverage, settle into your creative space, and meet Carrie. Carrie, welcome to the show.
Hi, Tammy. How are you? It's good to see you again.
Oh, it's so good to see you, and with a few less people around than the last time we were together. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. Last time Carrie and I were together, we were in a room filled with people. She was hosting this amazing event, and we said hello. She was so gracious and tried to have a conversation. I'm like, please, go do your thing. So it was wonderful and so well attended, and really just such a nice opportunity for me to at least see you in person. But today we're going to dive into more of your story and understand a little bit more of how you got from the beginning to where you are now, and what's coming up next. So please take it away.
My story is not that exciting in the beginning. It's just like almost all of us. We, I was the kid that was always crafty and artsy in school, and thought I was going to be an artist when I grew up, and hit the 90s and decided money was more important.
Show me the money.
Exactly. So I had a career for quite a while, but had kind of built that up, and it was stressful. And so I went back to my crafts to relax and did, the absolute stereotype thing. I went to all the craft stores and bought beads and sat in front of the TV and made beaded jewelry. It was wonderful.
Yeah, it really is. It's a meditative process. And even if it's not something you're doing for a living, it's one of those things where you can just relax and lose yourself in it, disconnect from the real life, especially if it's a stressful time in your life or you have a stressful job. It's such a wonderful thing to escape to.
It absolutely is.
But that's not the end of your story. You didn't go from beading to amazing metal clay inventor.
So the gist of it was that I was beading and playing and enjoying being creative, and really had that as my hobby. And one morning got a bug that I wanted to make my own piece. I'm like, I'm tired of buying all the pieces at the store. I want to make my own design on something. And literally, it was like 7 a.m. Saturday morning. I'm looking for a class on Saturday. So I find this metal clay class, which it said silver class, make a silver pendant. I'm like, oh, this sounds fun, I show up, I don't even register. I'm totally new. So very graciously, she let me in, and she's showing us all these metal pieces that we can make. And I'm like, oh, this is really cool. I could do this, it'll be fun. And then she hands us clay. And I remember thinking, what? I think I misunderstood something. And
did I read the sign wrong?
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I don't understand what's happening. And it was hilarious because it was one of those magical moments. I knew the second that I touched that clay, that was my medium. I knew it. And I had done a million things. I carved, I painted, I everything that you like doing. You knit, you crochet, you do all of it. Mm-hmm. The clay was it. It was exactly what I knew how to do very well naturally. And so that's how I got into metal clay. And for years, I was just making things and having fun, and it was great. And I thought, well, I'll do a little bit of teaching because that'll help me kind of cover the cost of the clay, right? And so naturally get into that, and I just teach it a couple friends, or I teach somebody, at their house or something. And I realized this is where the business brain started happening. I realized that they couldn't buy the clay anywhere. They couldn't get the tools. It just wasn't available out there. And so everything had to be bought online, and everything was challenging because you don't know what you're buying, and the education was still at that time still very scattered because it was such a new medium that people didn't really understand it all the way, So there was information that was good. You can make this thing, but if something goes wrong, we don't know why.
Sorry, figure it out.
Exactly.
You're on your own.
Yeah. So I started, I'm going to say carrying products, but literally carrying products. I would take a couple packs of clay to somebody's house, and teach them the class and sell them a roller and some gauges and some clay. And that is really how the business end of it started for me. And my business brain kicked back in full force. So
I went, where the two came together.
Exactly. I went from enjoying it as a hobby to changing it to an actual performing business. So that was somewhere around maybe 2013, 2014 is when that kind of started to happen.
And were you still working full-time at the time, or
No,
this was your thing?
Yeah, I had changed. It was basically what was happening was we had moved. I had to change jobs. So I was trying to figure out how to just support, and I didn't have to support the whole family, so that helped a lot. Right, yes. So I was just trying to figure out basically how to support myself and my habit, my metal clay habit. That was why I was just selling a little bit of the tools and the clay and things like that, trying to kind of, if I broke even, I was happy, So.
Well, and I do think, I know our listeners are interested in making a business out of it. And so I know many of us started out as a hobby, evolved into a business. And for some, it stops there because we are not either trained in business, it's not our forte, or we really just don't want to do it. Like that part's the boring part. Like that's the drudgery. And it's unfortunately where you wind up spending a lot of time because you need processes and accounting and all of the things that are so not fun. But you were able to then take it from a hobby. You've made it so that you could break even, and you're like, wait, I could do more.
Yeah. What took over for me was really when I realized, like, I started thinking I was going to sell jewelry, I had to come to some realizations. I can make jewelry, and I'm not bad, and it's pretty, and I can design okay. I don't want to make jewelry the same way all the time. That was a realization, and that's what I usually talk to people about when I'm trying to give them advice about what direction to go. To me, it's figure out what you want to do and what you're good at, and be honest with those two things. I would love to be a high-end artist. I would love it more than anything, probably, right? But I know that I have some talent, but I don't have that talent, And then on top of that, if that's your talent, you also have to sell that talent. So you have to have some of the business to be able to match it, right? And that can be very difficult to do. So finding what you're good at and finding out how to sell what you're good at is a thing. And that's what changed the company for us, was when that happened. I figured out I can teach very well, and my business brain and the marketing can take over. And I can still be creative and I can do all of these other things, but I don't have to try to sell my designs and my jewelry that way because that's not really what I'm good at, you know?
Well, and maybe it's also not where you were most passionate. Even if it's really the end of the line and you really want to be a high-end artist, maybe it's really not exactly, you're not being honest with yourself, because you clearly have the skills, the talent, the brain for business, and you chose this path. And maybe the artist part will come later.
That's
Once,
interesting. That's you're right, because it is something that, when I get those moments that are quiet, I do want to sit down and just create something amazing. And, that all wants to be there. But you're right. That's not a everyday thing for me. My drive every day is creative business, you'd call it,
yeah,
Yeah.
I love that term, creative business. It's a great term. Do you use that often, or did that just come out of your head?
It was creative talking.
We're creating new terms here, people. You heard it first. Creative business. And it's kind of duo purpose. It is a business in the creative space, and it is a creative way to do business.
I'm going, yeah, we got to write that down.
You write that down. Where's Cameron? Cameron, capture that.
It is true, though. That's exactly what it is, in our industry, you don't want to do anything that's been done before because it's not exciting. It's not new. It's not creative, right?
Mm-hmm.
To attract creative people, you have to do things that are creative, that they aren't used to seeing, that will catch their attention. So that is
well, and through other conversations, it's true. And our industry, and I was just at a creative conference. So in our industry, that it is, we typically are people who like to do all the things, and everything you listed at the beginning that attracted you attracts most of us. And at some point we're going to cycle back around. And so you're just wanting to stay current and relevant and creative, so that as people cycle back around and as new people come in, you can be that shining star, the one that stands out, because you're doing things a little differently.
Exactly.
Yeah. Brilliant. So you're brilliant. You're a brilliant marketer. You're a brilliant businesswoman. You like to make things. Just weird. No, I think the other thing is, like, you're fearless, and you. I know you haven't shared this yet, but I know you've partnered with Cameron. Like, Cameron is right there with you, and you've shared that, like, when he joined the company, you were able to kind of take things to another level. And it's important to have somebody as your partner to lean into, so you're not in it alone.
It is. What happened right at 2019, 2020, I was starting, we had a lot of products selling online. I was doing most of the bigger trade shows, trying to be out there teaching all the time. And so we started to get a lot of products. Inventory, became a thing. Data and accounting and all of that stuff. And so he had worked part-time for me off and on forever, virtually free. Oh, we haven't said Cameron is my son.
Oh, did I not say that?
Yeah. So, and then we had a couple other, off and on part-time people helping out here and there. And I started to get to that point where I'm like, okay, I actually do need a full-time employee to help me out. And Cameron was in a job that he just hated at the time. He just hated it. And he was looking so hard trying to find something. And we waited because I didn't want to hire him when he was too young to take it seriously. When you're young, you're like, oh, I don't know what I want to do exactly.
I don't want to work for my mom.
Right, I don't want to work for my mom. Yeah, my mom makes jewelry.
It's not nothing to do with that.
Right. So we waited, and we got very lucky. The timing was perfect. It was just pure luck. He finally decides, yeah, let's do this. And we made it a deal. We made a pact. We're like, okay, this is a deal. We got to agree on this. We can't let it affect our relationship or any of those things. And because I take it very seriously. And so I hired him. Are you ready? February 2020. Quits his job, puts his 2 weeks notice in. I hired him, and the world shuts down.
Baby, sorry.
I'm like, oh, I died. I remember talking to my husband, who was, of course, I don't know about hiring him. I don't know.
And help raise that
I said,
child.
he's going to be good. He's responsible now. And then it's me. I'm like, oh no, I'm going to have to lay him up. But for the craft industry, that was amazing. It was something none of us expected to happen, but it completely boomed. And so having him made that work exactly the way it needed to work. So we doubled our size in 2020 and did it again in 2021. So that really is what made Clay Revolution like real.
For real. A real for real.
Yep. We're real. We're not going anywhere.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, the timing was right.
Yeah, it was.
That's great.
We had, and I'll hit this briefly because we'll probably hit this more later on in something, but we had that kind of expansion, you'd call it then. And then we all know, I guess we could talk about it, PMC.
Yeah.
I could say that word.
PMC.
So what was that, 2020, right? No, 2021 is when we got wind that Mitsubishi was going to stop manufacturing. And we had been making base metal clays. We make 5-star base metal clays. We had been doing that since 2015. So, and for years, you know, people talked about, oh, you should do silver, you should do silver. And I was like, why in the world would I compete with Mitsubishi? You know, I'm like, I don't need to do that. So when they announced, that changed things again for us. And it was like, okay, now there's a business opportunity there that's real. And, you know, it's tangible enough to go after. And that was the next hard decision that we made. It was a big one. It was a big one because it meant silver. It meant investments. It meant a lot of things like that were, you know, again, our little company that was stable and doing good. And hey, it's paying our bills. Now we're going to take it to the next level again within just a couple years. So that was a big decision. But we made that leap and we launched Project X last June. So this year's been a roller coaster.
Yeah, and you keep scaling. So you somehow and I don't mean to put you on the spot. I think for people who are curious and maybe are considering scaling their business, like, did you prepare for scale, or did all of these things really just kind of happen and you just said, okay, I'm just going to do it and hope for the best, and Cameron, buckle up, we're going?
Well, both. No.
Yeah, okay.
I really, there were a couple things. We frequently talk about from it, and it, you know, we get serious in our business. Mm-hmm. We frequently talk about our goals, short-term goals, long-term goals, and we keep them at the forefront of every decision because, you know, I'm not going to do this for 20 more years. I don't think. Maybe I'll make the jewelry and I have fun and I go to the store for 20 years, but I'm not going to be in the office every day, doing all of this that we do. I obviously want to slow down at some point. So I have to look to him. What does he want? Right? What does he want this company to be? Do you want this company to be a little kind of side metal clay thing, you know? Do you want it to be a studio where people come in and make jewelry? What do you want? And so that's the kind of stuff that we frequently talk about, because if things change, every decision that we make, like, do we want to make silver? It's directly tied to that. If we want to make silver, we better be ready for this to be a full manufacturing company, you know? So not because it's not something that I guess I believe in doing it right, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah. I think when I'm looking at a project, if I don't think that we'll be the best at it, or maybe second best, if I don't think we're going to make that, I don't know why I would spend a lot of time and all of my effort and all of my brain power to get there, right? If I think that we can really succeed and be great, we'll put it that way rather than best and second best. If I think we can be great, then it's worth the time. Then it's worth the effort to do, right? So that's kind of how I look at decisions a little bit when we look at them. We have our goals out there, and then we say, can we do this? If we think we can do this, we jump.
That's awesome. So, but there's a fine balance between wanting to make sure you can do it right and making sure you've checked all the ins and outs and analysis paralysis, and then you don't jump. And I think that was one of the phrases you used, is like, just jump. But so what could you offer as far as any sort of insight into, I won't hold you accountable if somebody makes the jump and they're like, but Carrie said, but like, what helps you know when the right time is without getting so caught up in that fear of failure, or I'm going to fall flat on my face? Like, how do you balance that?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot on your shoulders.
There is. I think I had to learn to not care about the little things, like the little judgments and things like that. I had to say, it kind of goes back to, okay, let's say my decision is, do I want to carry a new water bottle? Okay. Well, the first thing that I do when I think that is, well, okay, what's the profit on my water bottle? Is that going to change me what that profit is, right? Is it going to change me or not change me? Does it make me money to pay for something else? Does it just kind of leave us where we are? Well, if it just leaves us where we are, why am I doing it? Right? Okay, so it changes us. How much does it change us? Does it change us enough to justify the time and the thought and all of those things that are going to go into this new water bottle? Right? And if it absolutely does, then I just jump. Right? If it questionably does, then I might go to the next question. I ask myself the next question. Well, okay, so does everybody else carry the water bottle? Everybody else carries it. Why do I need to carry the water bottle? And so that's kind of how it's not, I don't make it super complex. I don't, go down to the pennies trying to figure it out. I kind of round things out in my head. Obviously, manufacture silver or don't manufacture that one took a little longer.
That's a big one.
Yeah, that was a big one. But really on a daily basis, it's looking at an opportunity, I would call it, right? If you see an opportunity, analyze the opportunity simply. Does it make you better? If it makes you better, it stays on the list, right? And you just keep just a couple more steps, and it's pretty simple. And competition. I have a lot of stuff on competition. People are afraid of competition a lot. Competition is actually very good for you. It's very good for you. It brings you strength, because you have to think about what your competition is doing, and you have to be smarter. Which doesn't mean you're school smarter. It doesn't mean, it's just kind of luckier. It's like looking at, well, XYZ company doesn't carry the water bottle, and everybody thinks that XYZ company has everything that they need, but guess what? They don't. They don't carry that water bottle. So now I'm going to tell the world that I carry this water bottle. And now 2 of XYZ companies' customers are going to come over here and they're going to buy the water bottle plus other things. Right? So competition does actually make you smarter if you pay attention to them.
And I think competition also proves market.
Yes. Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like there's value in knowing that somebody else is already in the space or is joining you in the space.
Yes.
That means there's a space to be.
There's a space to be. Yeah. And, I'm very friendly with a lot of my competition. It's just how we are.
Yeah.
We play the game together, right? There was a thing that my husband said to me one time. I wish I could come up with the phrase, but I can't. It was something about competition bringing the masses. Trade shows. You have two competitor booths right next to each other. It doesn't matter. The customers will go to both of them. They love the more of that thing that they love,
Yeah.
the better it is, right? And because each one of them is working to come up with new products or advancements in the product, and that is exciting to a customer. And so, competitors can be great, but you got to pay attention to them.
Sure. And you also, I think because our space is so small, I mean, some people may not feel that the jewelry space is small. I feel like it's small.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
And we all know each other, or we know of each other.
Right.
And so you also want to be respectful of others.
Exactly.
And respect their business. And even though you may sell the same water bottle, it doesn't mean that you now think you're better than your competition. You still know those people.
Exactly.
It's like being neighbors. Like, you're not going to just say,
right.
You're not gonna,
Yep.
yeah.
Start shooting over the fence. Yeah, no.
So that's,
yeah. It's definitely a game, and sometimes it's harder than others, but
of course.
not being afraid of competition is a very strong thing. And I that would be another one of my recommendations. Don't be afraid of your competition. Watch them, learn from them. Don't just copy them, but try to look at what they're not doing. That might be a direction to go, because then if they're not doing it, you can get ahead of them on that thing.
Sure. And then if they're not doing it, maybe it also gives you a reason to think, well, why aren't they doing it? So,
exactly.
Like it gives you, like you said, you go through a process of questions, and that to me would just be another question to ask yourself. Like, is there a reason they're not doing that?
Yeah.
Oh, no, there's not. Okay. So then I'm going to do it.
I'm going to jump.
It's a great idea. Yeah. I'm going to jump. Right. Well, what about that fear of failure? I don't know. I tend to ask this question because I don't think it's just me asking, my own fear of failure. But there is some validity to that fear that we carry with us. I have to imagine that you had to have gone through some process of self-doubt when you were getting ready to launch this, and you went through the process of like
some. I probably benefited from my upbringing and my childhood a little bit during all of that. I'm way too confident in stuff. So I probably am like on the other end of that spectrum. But to talk to it a bit, though, there are things, that I feel uncomfortable about myself with. Education. I'll just go into it. I don't have a college degree. I didn't go to college. I went into business and I learned everything that I've learned by just working in the industries, right? And so still, it's always been that lingering doubt in my mind, right? I don't have all of that behind me. And so I see it the most in big projects. Like, I'm working a big project now, and the things that I need to know, I'm reading books. I'm actually reading a book called Scaling Up, which is funny that you said that.
Yeah. Right.
So it's things that, you're not going to learn even just on a regular job. You're not going to learn probably in school, but it's, how to analyze all of the business operations on a data level, summarizing it all to see what areas of your business you should be improving, and which one is first and where to prioritize them and how much money they're worth. And all of those things are where I feel my doubt, right? When I'm working on a big project like this, I'm like, okay, am I smart enough to do this? Do I need to, maybe I need to hire people. Maybe I need to just talk to more people, see who can do what,
Yeah.
get the connections. And so I usually tend to when I feel that way, I tend to reach out.
Good.
That's when I tend to reach out to contacts that I think, okay, this person gives me really good advice, to get my brain feeling more confident. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's it's great advice, and I think you've already addressed it for yourself. Is like you ask for help or
Yeah.
you hire it,
Yeah.
and that I think is the smart move because you can't be good at all of it. And unfortunately, I suffer from that same self-doubt of no education, blah
Really?
blah blah. Oh yeah, I didn't go
Yeah.
to college. I feel like I'm a hack. I had no formal training, nothing, nothing, nothing. I was gifted an amazing opportunity, and here we are 30 years later. That's all there is to it. But I think that self-doubt is what sits on our shoulder and prevents us from realizing, like, the person sitting next to us who did graduate, they've already hired that other person. They don't care that they don't know it.
Exactly.
But we get hung up on it thinking like, oh my gosh, like I don't know it, but I should know it, so I should learn it.
Right. I should try to figure this out. Yeah.
Right. Right. And meanwhile, we've spent 6 months reading the book and like doing all this thing. They hired somebody and they're 6 months ahead because so
Right.
it sounds like you've already figured out the right way to go.
It is a biggie. And I don't think I probably learned that till 3 or 4 years ago. I really didn't. I was still trying to do all of it and figure all of it out and be good at every aspect of this. And I can't do that,
Nope.
like
I know
I can try.
it's like once I pass 50, I'm like, whatever. I'm closer to the end now. It doesn't matter. Oh, look, I got a thumbs up. Okay, way to go.
Oh, did it go? Yeah, there it goes.
I didn't know my computer would do that. So anyway, I have no advice to offer you other than I hope that we both can get off that hook and not worry about it at this point here forward because it's baggage we don't need.
It's true. It really is. And surrounding yourself with good people that give you that confidence back, get you back on track, and like you said, not being paralyzed when it happens. Because it's gonna happen. Yeah. Don't stop. Make that phone call right away. And then it's just gone. I mean, it could be gone the same day.
Yep. Moving on.
Yeah.
Moving on. Right. I know. Isn't that funny? Well, and Cameron seems, I only met him briefly at your event, and interacted with him a little here and there. He seems very confident as well and very competent.
He is. And he's funny. We talk a lot because, he's very different than me and yet very the same. It's interesting the way that he looks at things differently and much more calmly. I get excited and go off on tangents and do all kinds of stuff, but he's much calmer and just kind of okay, we go this way, we do this, and I've been joking with him because the next couple years here he will transition into more of the face of the company. And I keep telling him, I'm like, well, you get to decide. Do you want to be famous or do you want to manage the company? Can't do both. But I keep calling him the man who reinvented metal clay. That's my new name for him. Because he went from mom makes jewelry to they were joking about him in the office the other day because every time he actually goes and picks up a pack of clay like off the shelf, he inspects the whole bag to make sure it was made right. It's got all the batch numbers on it, weighs right about. It's like
awesome.
So particular, but it's perfect. It's exactly what we need. Somebody staying on top of all the details of that kind of stuff. So
wow, I could see him as he's getting ready to retire, still picking up that pack of clay and looking at it. That's a really good habit. It's a good practice.
It is. It's just a whole thing. Yeah.
Integrity.
Yeah. And we feel that way. That's one of our things here is customer service and product. It needs to be, in order for us to survive, it needs to be the best. That's what we need to be. So that's his thing. I'm like, okay, you do that.
Yeah. Well, and the other side, it has your name on it.
Yeah.
And it has his name behind it.
Yeah.
And I know for those of us in the metal clay world, like Mitsubishi's behind PMC, Aeda's behind Art Clay, and then there are a few other manufacturers.
Right.
But you guys really are the face of your brand as
Yeah.
well as are the brand. Like
Right.
you're standing on that cliff.
Yeah.
And if the
Exactly.
cliff is not good, you're going to be falling.
Right. Right. Yeah. We do that, you know what? That is one of the scary ones. That's one of the scary ones because having your name on it and our industry being so small, I can't say anything on Facebook without 20 instant messages back. Well, what did you mean by that? What did, and so that does take some strength, I would say. So when you do put yourself out there, and you put your name on your thing, be proud of it. Be proud of it. Be um, shoot for being the greatest of it, whatever it is. If you're making a piece of jewelry, shoot for it being the greatest. If you're just selling, I mean, that's a good example because there's people that make what we'll call art jewelry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every piece is totally one of a kind, just they might make 3 pieces a year. Then you've got other people that are mass producing pieces, right? It doesn't matter which one of those two kind of artists you are. Whatever it is that you put out to the final product, whatever that is to the customer, be the best at it, just strive to be the coolest, best thing that they've ever seen. I'll call it copy, but I don't mean just flat out copy, but if you copy too much of anything, you won't end up in that position. You'll just be that guy that's selling stuff. It's just making revenue, selling stuff after everything is kind of slowed down, and you won't shine as much. You won't shine as much. So,
and I think the people in our space, just to touch on the copy part, like a lot of people copy to learn and then they move on. Like I feel most people are so interested in expressing their own creativity.
Yeah.
They need to understand the fundamentals, and then if I change it to be this, how will it work?
Right.
I like to encourage that as an instructor, and
Absolutely.
being in publishing, that was always something we really required people. Like you can learn from this, but make it your own.
Right.
Because you have to, that's again a piece of integrity that you have to respect, because that is actually somebody else's design.
Exactly. And that's, that whole subject is a tricky subject.
It's very tricky.
It is.
Very tricky.
My philosophy as a teacher was always, what, if I release a class, I need to not care about that happening, because all I can do is stand on my integrity on that, because it's just going to happen, and the hope is always that people use it for inspiration.
Yep.
Right? Take that, you can make the same kind of thing, just whatever your inspiration was, make it heart-shaped instead of round. I don't care. But I did have to, as a teacher, that was one of the ones I had to just say, you know what? If I put something out there, it's out. It's gone. I need to not care about that happening, because you can't focus on that happening. It's going to happen. Yeah.
No, I agree. And I think, that would be a piece of advice I would offer to anybody who's coming into our forum, into any sort of creative space where you're sharing your knowledge and your expertise. Don't hold on to it so tightly that you're then crushed when you let it go, because once you let it go, there's no way to get it back.
There's no way to get it back. Nope. And honestly, everybody says this, and it's hard when it happens, but take it as a
compliment.
A compliment. That was the word I was going for. Yeah. Take it as a compliment. If they thought it was cool enough to copy, take it as a compliment. And you can tell everybody, oh yeah, that was copied. But you can't focus on it. You can't worry about it, because it will happen. It just will.
It will. And again, that also is part of, I think, the people who are taking your workshop are insecure. They don't believe in themselves. And so they only feel good about being able to replicate what you taught them. Yes. And it's also, I think, a responsibility of a good instructor is to help inspire people and encourage them to take what they've learned and grow and have that self-worth that what
Absolutely.
they make is actually good and you need to just
Absolutely.
keep making it. And you know, oh yeah. We
Yeah.
could go on and on about that, couldn't
I
we?
know. I'm like, okay, what are the subjects?
Let's move on.
I'm like, I'm like 5 pages back or something. Yeah, okay, let's see.
Oh my gosh. Well, so I think we've teased it a lot. Project X. So what do you want to share about that? I know for those who are listening who are in our space or not, I think the highlight for me is knowing that you and Cameron put, I don't know how many hours you put into experimenting. And so tell us a little bit about that journey, because it really, it's applicable to anybody inventing something new that
Yeah.
you're kind of complementing something that existed, but making it your own.
Right. Yeah, that was really interesting, the development of it. So it went back to my questions. I was starting my questions. Why are we doing this? Right.
Yes.
And we get this announcement from Mitsubishi. Well, not really. We get a leak, right? And after I told all of the PMC instructors in our little, certification groups, I probably got 5 phone calls that night. You should make silver. I'm like, that's a whole, I'm like, I know what you guys are thinking, but that is a whole thing. So then I had to sit down and ask, do we want to? And Cameron and I were, actually, it was him that said it. He said, if we don't do this now, we will always be the same company that we are right now. I'm like, yeah. And for me, that was fine. For him, he's still young. That was not fine, right? So that was the moment I'm like, okay, that makes sense. So then it was trying to figure out how much money we were going to need to do that, and was that even remotely possible? So sat down and did finance, just trying to calculate how much we really need to do this and can we get that kind of money. And after that part was figured out, which, it took a solid month to say, can this really happen? Then we were like, okay, start playing with the clay. Let's figure this out. What do we want to make? And I went back to all the things, just like at the core of them. When I first touched the clay, what was it like? What did I do? And I knew that I loved it, but I've seen so many students have all kinds of different issues with it over the years. And so I thought, okay, what are the issues with the current clays? That's the first place we need to fix, because if we can fix any of that, we should. We're making a new clay. We don't have any rules. I don't need to recreate Mitsubishi's clay. There's no rules in this game. I need to make a product that I can sell. That's what I need to do. And so we picked out the important ones. The old model clays dry fast. It was just a thing. You had to learn how to do it, And you see it in students all the time. They'll open up a pack of clay and you look over and they're just going like this in their fingers and you're like,
No,
stop touching it.
don't do it.
So that was number one, that the clays just dried so fast before. They didn't have long working times. And so we thought, okay, even if we can only improve that, that would be huge. Then the next one to me that came was metalsmiths, right? Metalsmiths, you remember this. It was like,
Oh my gosh.
we don't like this stuff. Like,
Tough crowd.
It was a tough crowd. I was not welcome in that crowd for a long time. Oh, I kept going back to that and thinking, there's all kinds of reasons for all of that, but a lot of it was valid. The validity was that the material is more porous after it's metal, right? It just doesn't feel like sheet metal. It doesn't act like it. It doesn't fuse the same. All of those things were there. And so there were limitations to using it as a metalsmith, as a traditional smith. And so that was my second one. I'm like, okay, those are the two biggies, because if I can fix the metal properties, the metalsmiths might warm up a little bit if I get used more often, right? And we'll get out of just the metal clay community. And if I can fix the working time, that makes it friendlier for anybody to pick up off the shelf and try to use it, right? If we can get more success just opening the clay by yourself, that would be a fantastic thing. So those were our two biggies that we focused on. And we had to learn so much chemistry. We're not chemists. Or
that degree we talked about earlier, this is a degree that might have served
that
you
moment.
well.
Yes, this was that moment.
You may not have known that in high school that was what you needed, but that would have been good.
Calling everybody under the sun. So we had to learn how to make clay, and we had to learn how to make metal. But we without having those rules, I think in some ways that helped us, because a metallurgist is going to say, do this, right? But a person that has no concept of any of that is trying to make a what would you say, a layman's term, right? It was like, okay, so if I have these pieces, I want them to stick together tighter. Do I need flakes in there? What do I need? You know, it was more like that. It was so simple. Our minds were so simple that we were looking at it from a very different perspective than the big chemical companies were. Right?
Well, and to be fair, the chemical companies are using the clay as a product that's using up things that they don't need anymore.
Exactly.
So they had an X that they had to make into something. You didn't have anything. Didn't mean to take that phrase.
No, I know what you mean.
Anything to make X. That X really became the name of your product.
Yep.
But you know what I mean? Like they had to do something with something that already existed.
Right.
And then it was inherently what it is.
It's right. It's just what it is. Yeah. Which
you could
wonderful. Yeah.
Right. And it is still wonderful.
Yeah.
But you had the ability to look at it for what it is and say like, but what else could it be?
Right.
That's awesome.
What could it be? Yeah. So we were those. I'll tell you, that took about a year and a half. Took us to get it, and you can't imagine how much clay.
I keep thinking about that. Like how we
spent every day at these little. They're not kitchen. They're like restaurant steel tables, right? Every day rolling out little 10-gram packs. No. Rolling out little 10-gram packs. No. We had little 10-gram chunks of clay everywhere.
Oh.
It was ridiculous. So it really, though, once we kind of started narrowing it down, then it went really fast towards the end. And there's still, the formulas and all that stuff back there is amazing, because there's things that we're like, oh, we're going to do that next. This one's coming, because it was just, we knew we had to launch a line, and it needed to be, we can't launch 35 products all at the same time, because that won't all sell, and, just too many things. So we had to hold things back, and we had to wait on some of the things. Like we're a high shrink formula, which is really great for detail. Like my very close friend said this to me, and I hadn't thought of it until she said it, because I'm little detaily, kind of thing, and I'll do the stuff in my fingers and work with the clay. She's like, I have big fat fingers. She said, I don't like making those little bitty pieces. She likes making big things, right? But by making them bigger, she can get the detail because she's using the high shrink clay, right? But then at the same time, those shrink clays are much better for other kinds of things.
Sure.
And so that's one of the ones that's in our list of, okay, we gotta do that. We're gonna do this. We're gonna get these moving, But the experiments and the testing. Oh, the testing. That's the boring part. I hated the testing.
Yeah. I would be so over that already.
I was over the testing.
Like, just give me a clay I can use, please.
Exactly. writing measurements down and ugh,
Yeah,
hated that part.
that's not my strength.
Same strip every time, 20 times. Ugh.
Boring.
So yeah, R&D was long and hard, but exciting on, those days where you feel like this worked. That was always great.
That's
It was
cool.
rewarding. Yeah.
That's cool. That's awesome. Well,
I don't know if you were gonna. I was kind of laugh about that because all of that jumped right into the marketing insanity. If we did, I don't know if that's where you were going, but oh my gosh, that was
well,
ridiculous.
well, I marvel at that. Because I respect the fact that you are a small business and you have accomplished so much just in what you've shared so far. But to know then how you amplified that and through your marketing and through the approach that you took, like that's really where your experience kicked in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. That was that business. I just call it business brain saying, okay, what do my competitors not do? That is the question. And you know what? Actually, I mean, as we keep saying this, it keeps coming back to that because that's why I made the clay that I made, because nobody was making that kind of clay, So I keep saying, what do my competitors not do? And that's what I keep trying to do. I won't list all the brand names, but when you look across the world of metal clays, they're not exciting. They're silver packages with some color on them, maybe a sticker on the front, a lot of words that say all the stuff about silver clay, how to fire it, all these things. And to a metal clay person, that's great. We know exactly what,
Mm-hmm.
But to a person that has never heard of metal clay, that might be walking into a craft store, who's a knitter, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not even going to see that package. They're never going to look at that thing. It just looks like just a simple little silver bag of, I don't know, maybe it's clay. I don't know, And so that was the first question when the marketing came up was, how are we different? Why are we different? Why would anybody buy our clay instead of the other clays? And so I said, those days were kind of funny. They were the funny days. We laughed a lot because we had some crazy ideas. I had everything from aliens to James Bond, which is what we ended up with.
I think you went the right direction.
We laughed a lot. I kept saying, okay, the bags need to look different. The name has to be not anything. I don't even want it to say silver. I'm like, everything was acronyms, right? And again, I won't say them all, but everything was an acronym. I'm like, we don't need to say any of that in there. It doesn't need that, It needs to be something that people look at and go, what is that?
Mm-hmm.
That's
curious.
all I wanted. Yep, that was all I wanted. I wanted them to say, what is that? So that's how we ended up with Project X, was somewhere in between aliens and secret missions. It's just ridiculous. Totally ridiculous.
It was intriguing, but it definitely was like, what?
What?
What did she do?
That's exactly. That was exactly what I wanted you to do.
Well, you were very successful. You were very successful. I'm just being honest.
It was so
Let's carry up to
Well, in our first commercials, didn't even say what it was.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, it was.
That's why I said, what is Carrie up to now? Because I was like, what is this even? I love James Bond, and I love that this man is replicating something about James Bond, but where are we going with this?
So the commercials came because, again, none of my competitors were making commercials. None of them. I was like, why isn't anybody advertising with commercials? It was it was a Facebook video or
Yeah.
a clip video, right? Of here's our new clay. Here's how to use it. Here's an artist making an earring, And that worked for a long time. That worked.
Yeah.
But it stayed within our community again. It was like, well, yeah, if I'm a metal clay person, I'm going to go, oh, that's neat.
Yeah, wait, how'd you know?
Yeah. Oh, okay. I'll buy the clay, But it wouldn't reach anything else. That just wouldn't reach out anything. And so that was the James Bond we had. And this guy, I love him to death. I'm hoping to bring him to Tucson next year.
Oh, great.
His name, so he is a Daniel Craig impersonator, and his name is actually James.
Really?
Hilarious, yes. And so we hired him to make these ridiculous commercials. Clay Revolution. All this weird stuff. And it was to get your attention. That's all I wanted. I just wanted to get your attention. And it worked. We got lucky. It worked.
It worked. No, I think that's where you have depth. You have experience, you have depth, you have vision, and you got out of the testing part and you got an opportunity to do something of your own making, and it's wonderful. I applaud you for that, and your marketing and your outreach, because you did attract the metalsmiths, you did engage the metalsmiths, you've leveraged the metalsmiths and their audience by showing, oh wait, you use metal clay? I didn't think you would use metal clay, like that. It was brilliant.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It was a guess, but I jumped.
You jumped. Yep. You could have definitely gotten stuck at go at many points in the journey.
Nope. It's just deciding what direction to turn, and if you turn the wrong way, make a different turn the next time.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, so before we wrap up, what's coming? Like, okay, so you have other formulas that you're going to roll out. What else did you want to share before we?
Well, I will say that we are working on a big project, and I intend to change the metal clay world again.
All right.
I want to bring metal clay to everybody, not just metal clay artists, not just jewelry makers. I mean, Tammy, you can make anything out of metal clay.
Anything.
Yeah, little sculpture things. You can make plates. You can make vases. You can make all kinds of amazing things out of it.
Yep.
And nobody is doing it. And that's our goal. That's
Okay.
Clay Revolution's goal, is to bring metal clay to everybody. That's what we want to do. We want it to be, how many times do you walk into any place and you say, oh, have you ever heard of metal clay? And they're like,
what? What is it?
But you ask almost anyone if they've heard of a Cricut machine at the stores, or the sublimation. Everybody knows what sublimation is. The resin in the wood tables and all of this stuff. It's beautiful, right? Everybody knows what those things are because they really hit the big craft industry with enough popularity that you just know, even if you don't do that thing, I love those beautiful resin pours on that wood and all the glitter. It's beautiful, I'm never going to do that, but I love it. So I want people to know what metal clay is so that I can start seeing what they're going to make out of it, because I can't, honestly. I know a lot of the things, but I start thinking about, like the Comic-Con figurines and stuff, and just chess pieces. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine the custom chess pieces you could make out of it? It'd be amazing. So that's our goal. That's where we're going. We're going to get there. We are going to bring metal clay to the masses.
Excellent. Well, I will stay tuned, and I know everybody will be watching very closely to see what is next for Clay Revolution and Project X and whatever other things you decide to bring to market. I find it very exciting, and I'm honored to know you and be in your circle.
Oh, absolutely honored to know you. I've watched you for so long that I'm like, I feel like I grew up with you sort of because it's like my jewelry making journey went right alongside. It was great. I love
Oh,
it.
well, thank you.
Even though I was much older during that little window. I started my making jewelry phase late in life.
Oh, that's okay. I think we all come into this river at a different point, and it's just a matter of how we meet and when we connect. And I'm glad that it just happened in that order, and we'll see who else joins us as this river keeps flowing.
Yes.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you so much for your time, for everything that you've brought to the table today, all that you have shared with our audience, and thank you to all of you for tuning in. For me, it is such an amazing pleasure to meet people like Carrie on my maker's journey, and I am so glad to bring her to you, and I hope that you will follow her, follow Clay Revolution, and keep an eye on all they have coming up, and maybe try metal clay if it's new to you, because it is definitely one of those materials that hooked both of us as well as many, many, many other people. It's an amazing material. So that is a wrap on another episode of Heart and Hands of a Maker. It's been so wonderful to share this time with you. Thank you for tuning in. And if you want more, be sure to head over to tamarahaneman.com/podcast for today's show notes and links to make it easy for you to find Carrie and Clay Revolution. And to be sure you never miss an episode, follow Heart and Hands of a Maker on your favorite podcast platform.